Hello all, it's been a while. I have here this wee anvil. I've had it for quite a lot of years actually, and it's just sat there and I've done nothing with it. I bought it somewhere in the south of England, and the seller told me that it was not a particularly desirable anvil, in good condition, but he said made of cast iron and okayish. However, I've looked into this a bit further and I'm not convinced that he was correct, because there are signs that this anvil is really quite old. Probably made of wrought iron, almost certainly forged, because in here, I'll show you shortly, but in here there is a mouse hole, and there's one at the front as well, and the mouse hole is used for the insertion of bars or tongs so that an anvil can be moved around in the process of being forged. With cast iron there's of course no need for such a thing. The likelihood is that it's probably a steel face welded on to the wrought iron, and you can just about see a little seam there. So another feature is it has a hardy hole, but it doesn't have a pritchel hole. Well, you can see that on camera quite easily. And one source on YouTube suggested that an anvil that does not have a pritchel hole dates back to 1830 or before 1830. Whether that's correct or not, I don't know. But if it is, all of this points to this being probably a wrought iron anvil with a steel face and really quite old. If anybody can confirm that or to refute it, I'll be very interested to hear in the comments section, because I'm quite keen to hear as much about this little anvil as I can. But it's a nice little anvil. It's 18.5 inches long, which is about 47 centimetres. So it's not a huge anvil, but it's a chunky little thing, and it appears to be in extremely good condition, especially if it's really old, unbelievably good condition for its age, because these edges are pristine. There is not a chip on them. You also note there's no table, there's no cutting table on this anvil. Again, that might be a sign of its age, I don't know. The weight, it weighs 8 stone and 2.4 pounds, stuck on our bathroom scales, which is 114.4 pounds. There's a very nice ring to it. A little bit of a dead spot there. I think that might just be the way it's made rather than any defect. It's right across. I don't know, I think probably it's okay. And then rings nicely. And even in what I've called a dead spot, it still rings, it just doesn't ring quite as much. But yeah, even down here. Also, ball bearing test. I've tried this already, but you see it bounces really quite nicely. And that's with the face still quite rusty. Even in that spot that I consider to be a dead spot, it's still bouncing really well. So I think this is quality. Anyway, you get the picture. Once this is cleaned up, it should bounce and ring even better. Now, the iron's covered in rust. It's beyond what I would call just a patina. It's sometimes an anvil with a thin layer of iron oxide over it can look really nice. It's a nice dark patina. This just looks a bit rusty, although it's not flaky rust, and it could be used like this. It's not flaky at all, but I think I'm going to clean this one up and see what's underneath. I should have mentioned that on one of the sides it's very, very faint, but I think I see something inscribed. I suspect it might be to do with the weight rather than a maker's name or something like that, but I don't know. We'll see once I've got the rust off. So what I'm going to do is soak this in vinegar. I told you about the mouse hole mouse holes. There's one there for the insertion of a bar to move the hot anvil around during the forging process. And there's another one at the front. In fact, there's two at the front. I'm not sure about that bottom hole, but it may be for some similar purpose. Now here's some alcohol, which I'm going to try and see if there's grease on the surface to come off. Well, that cloth's not very dirty at all. So on to the next stage. I know I did some kind of a degreasing effort with alcohol, but I got this for another job. It's a kind of powerful cleaner and brake cleaning agent, so I'm going to give it a blast of this as well because there's no reason not to. And then, according to the instructions, I just wash it off again with water 5 minutes later. It really wasn't very greasy at all. Now, the next thing is there's some areas of old paint on this anvil, little bits and pieces like this white here, and there's some yellow at the back, wee bit of red. So I'm just going to dry that off, and then I'm going to put some paint stripper onto these painted areas. Yes, well, after I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours maybe, we're definitely seeing some action here with the paint stripper, so I'm just going to leave it and sit it here overnight. I'm going to put some more paint stripper on. Okay, after an overnight application of paint stripper, I would say it's coming, but we're not quite there yet. So there's no rush. I'll put more paint stripper on and we'll give it more time. So now I'm going to give it all a good wash and scrub with detergent and water to get any residual paint stripper off and get it ready for the next stage. And now for the fun part. It is not like vinegar. And now salt. So I think these are gallon containers. There's 4 gallons of vinegar, and the usual recipe for this is 1 cup of salt per gallon of vinegar. Good. Plenty of salt and vinegar left over for some other projects which I have in mind. Nothing to do with cooking. So that's that. I'll give this a bit of a stir around. Let it dissolve in. And what I'm going to do is just let this soak. Not in a rush to get this out of the pickle. I'm just going to let it soak and we'll see what happens. Well, the anvil's been in the vinegar for several days now, and probably naive of me, but I kind of imagined that the rust would just fall off it into the vinegar. That has not happened. I'm going to have a go with this brass bristle brush, and I've had a wee go at it already, and it certainly the vinegar has made quite a difference in terms of loosening up the rust, but I think this is going to take quite a lot more work still. So I'll go at it with this for a while and see what happens. Definitely something happening. You can't beat hoses and plastic buckets on a beautiful sunny day. Takes me right back to my childhood. Looking good. There's not much rust left on it. It's looking really nice. I'm just going to let it sit in the sun and dry. So I don't know how visible it is. It might be. We've got these numbers here, 1, 0 and 4. So to me that should mean 100 weight plus 4 pounds. I can't remember what I weighed it in as earlier in the video, so I'll need to see if that tallies with my weighing of the anvil, but that's 104, I'm pretty sure of it. So there we are. We'll decide what we're going to do next. It's always a difficult call, you know. Do I paint it? Do I not paint it? Do I let it be in its raw state, or do I paint it and give it a colour? On this occasion, this one I'm going to paint. Might not always be the case, but this one I'm going to paint. But I'm going to just give the various holes, the mouse holes and so on, a blast with this air blower just to dry out any moisture that might still be in there. But the surface of the anvil's fine, but given I'm going to paint it, I might as well get these as dry as I can. Okay. And now I'm just going to give the end of the horn a tiny wee going over with this angle grinder just to get that bit there where it's been flat, just to smooth that off a bit. Not much work here, just very minimal intervention, but just to make it come to a nicer point than it does. Now, as I know not everyone will applaud this decision, but I do have this very nice colour of hammerite. The colour's called Wild Thyme. I like the colour, so I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to leave the top of the face obviously unpainted and the top of the horn. The rest, here we go. Yeah, I think it's coming out, it's starting to look really good already. I really like that. Yes. There we go. I think that's a nice colour. So finally, it's all painted, even underneath. I'm just going to continue with this wire brush to get the flash rust off the face and the horn. I feel the face is still a bit rough. Yeah, I think that'll have to do. Evaluation time. Well, this is quite an old anvil. I think probably maybe before 1830 because of the lack of a pritchel hole. It's not the most refined. I think that's due to its age. Another thing to be borne in mind and to be addressed in the future perhaps, is the fact that the top of this anvil does not sit level when the anvil is mounted on a level surface. You can see it quite clearly there. It slopes down, for example, relative to the division between the drawers and that filing cabinet behind it. So that will require milling as well, and I think that will have to be milled on the bottom of the anvil, because the face, the hardened steel face isn't thick enough to mill away to compensate for that slope. So the excess would have to be taken off the front of the anvil at the base. So that's quite a big job, but I think probably it should be done at some point. It's pretty much certainly made of forged wrought iron, which was the material of choice back in those days for anvils. It is in pretty good condition. It rings beautifully. Ball bearing test. Bounces pretty high. But overall I'd say maybe 60-70%, something like that. And as for the look of it, well, I love it. I love that grey-green hammerite, Wild Thyme it's called. I've never seen that colour before. It's lovely colour, and I may actually make it a colour of choice for various machine tools and so on for my workshop, because although I've never been a fan of the colours that hammerite produce, I do like the ease of applying the stuff. Single coats, direct to rust, no fuss, no primer required, and I think the colour of this is just great, and I think that the colour of the paint and the colour of the iron and the steel play off against each other beautifully. So I'm going to keep this anvil. I've got another anvil arriving shortly, which is going to be really something special, but this is going to be a lovely little secondary anvil. I don't want to part with it. I'm going to find a little stump to mount it on, and it will be a part of my workshop. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you later.